and we're helping the child be able to take control. We all know people learn better when they're interested in what they're learning.
You can just see every day in the classrooms how the kids come in with an idea about what they're going to research, and it could be some completely obscure topic, and we just work with them to try and find the tools. So I was telling Rebecca about her grandson and how he's really excited about early humans, and how I can take that topic and we're going to practice reading and writing by directing that interest and kind of integrating the standards and the concepts in my mind that I want him to learn with what he's really excited about. And I think that the Montessori classroom is entirely set up that way. Because the materials are beautiful, just by looking at them, kids want to touch the math materials. If I start manipulating and playing with something, somebody's going to come over and try and figure out what that is. The material on the floor, the yellow one, is skipped counting, or it's part of the B cabinet, where the kids can do all different kinds of multiplication work and counting and understanding square roots and cubes. So I taught that to one child this morning, and then within 5 minutes had 6 kids around me, because they're like, oh, what, you know, there's just something about it. They're interested, so then they're learning this other content.
So again, we take advantage of the nature of the human being, that we learn best when we're interested in something, and follow that interest to bring the child to a level of competency in other fields. In a Montessori classroom, we are very aware that everything is interrelated. And so we can take any interest and move it in directions. The other thing is, we know developmentally, kids at this age, they're in the gang period anyway. They're always interested in what their friends are up to. And so if we can take advantage of the interest of one child and spark that interest, that child gets excited, all of a sudden it has a snowball effect, and it will, you know, spread and ripple out into the rest of the classroom environment. So taking advantage of the power of the interest of the children is a really important aspect of a Montessori environment. We also know that, contrary to this, whenever we apply extrinsic motivation, that's either rewards or punishments or bribes or whatever you want to call it, to an activity or a learning task, as soon as that extrinsic motivation is removed, all interest in that activity diminishes. So giving a reward or giving a punishment in order to entice a child to do something is totally counterproductive. And so you're not going to see in a Montessori environment where the kids are getting stars or smiley faces or real punishments for not succeeding either. They're going to be getting scaffolding to help them build to be able to be more successful.
I think most of our motivation comes through conversations with the kids, or them choosing what, you know, them making a plan and deciding, you know, I'm interested in doing this research on this animal, and I'm really interested in typing it on the computer. So they're kind of going based on their interest and tying it into the next thing that they want to do. It's always the next academic thing that they're interested in that's kind of pulling them forward. As far as consequences for not finishing something, it's really just having a conversation and explaining and saying, well, this is what we need you to do, and this is why, what do you think? And trying to come up with a plan that way.
So again, this is another reason why in your Montessori environment, your kids aren't getting grades. They're not competing with one another. We are constantly helping them wish to excel, or you know, to be in touch with that part of themselves that wishes to excel. I mean, kids in general, if they are not stifled, really want to do it well. That's part of human nature. And we just help get them in touch with that part of themselves. So they're not trying to do better than anyone else. They're trying to do their best. And that's something that they know from inside themselves. And it really, again, changes the complexion of what's going on within the environment, because it's no longer, what do you think? Is this okay? The child inside themselves knows. you know, I worked hard on this. Look at what I did. And it comes from them instead of looking for that motivation from outside. Collaboration. Collaborative arrangements are very conductive to learning. And this is something that Montessori knew, I guess, intuitively, because she immediately, from the very beginning, put kids of mixed age groupings together in the same environment. You have the 3 to 6 year olds together, the 6 to 9, 9 to 12, 12 to 15, 15 to 18. She really knew that kids learn best from their peers, and that collaboration brings more than the individuals could ever do on their own. So again, in a Montessori environment, it's not like, you can't look at my paper. It's, this is what I found out. What do you think about that? Oh, you see it that way. That's totally different from how I thought of it, but I can understand how that would be. The wonderful conversations that I overheard today, I mean, one of the things that I do when I come, aside from talking with the staff and talking with you guys, is I sit in each classroom, and so I get to listen to what's going on in the room. And I heard some wonderful conversations today about piranhas and about how do you get the subtraction answer. And these were, you know, kids sitting together at the same table. If you walked in, you might say, oh my goodness, they're talking, they're not working. But they were collaborating about what was going on, and they were helping each other. And so again, that's something that's going to look a little bit different when you come in to observe. Because, you know, it's not the teacher in the front of the room and all the kids listening to her or falling asleep, or whatever it is that they're doing if they're not especially interested in being directed by that particular adult. There's a lot of collaboration. And I mean, one part of the problem, did you know that piranhas really aren't carnivorous? Oh yes, they are carnivorous. Right here, you're going to find them underneath the carnivorous fishes. Really? No, well, that's not here. I went all through the carnivorous fishes, and there's not, the piranha's not in there, so they can't be carnivorous. And they went to the teacher, said, you know, I have to go to, I can't remember whose room they were going to go to, but I have to go to this other room, and we need to get some more books about piranhas because, you know, clearly this isn't all the information. So they already, you know, through this collaboration, they've learned that, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I remember, you know, when I went to school, we had a textbook. And what was in the textbook was the right answer. And what you did is you read what it was in the textbook, and then you took a test, and you had to make sure that you know what it said in that textbook. These kids know better. They know that information might not be right. They know it might not be complete. They know it might be different ways of looking at things. These are wonderful things to be learning when you're in first, second, third grade. I mean, these are things that I didn't figure out until I went to college, you know. I mean, I'm still trying to find that right answer. These kids are already discovering that there are questions that are very open-ended and can be answered in a lot of different ways. And that comes, I think, especially from this collaboration and really from the very beginning seeing there are different perspectives, there are different ways of doing this.
One of the questions I know I've gotten has been about our class size. That there's a lot of kids in our class. One of the things that's great about that is if I'm in a lesson, then the students are asking each other to solve a problem. So your first, or to get an answer to something, or trying to figure out how to do something. So their first resource isn't to come ask the adults. Rather, you have to think for a second and say, okay, what other resources in the room are there? And that's where you get these amazing conversations about subtraction. I've had kids come up to me and say, well, she's not understanding it because you're a teacher, I'm going to explain it to her, okay? And they'll like piece it together, and they have this like kid logic, and because they're learning it and part of that process right then, that they can help another child too. And I think because of the size of the classroom, the fact that they have to share materials, they're, you know, waiting turns and doing things like that, they're accessing other tools, which is kind of nice.
And the other thing, when you think of the size of the classroom, there may be 30 children, but there are only approximately 10 first graders, 10 second graders, and 10 third graders. And so that means there are 10 teachers. There are 10 third grade teachers for those 10 first grade kids. And it's very beneficial for those